Here we go, guys. 2 Maidens, split footage on the ground, in the air. Stick around for the very end where I give you my opinion and wrap up of Maiden flights. All right, guys, here we go. This is the Maiden of the Mig-29 by Freewing from motionrc. This is the upgraded D85 high-tech servos for the elevators. We're running 5200 ZEEE packs in this. Timer set for 310. So we're going to do just a trimming flight before we really push on the elevator and see how this goes. Going up, left to right. Elevator in this is super touchy. Gonna go to low rate. This thing turns, guys, super tight on low rate recommendations. Feels very light and agile. Like you can really turn it in a shoebox. Holy hell. I can't imagine what this would be like with thrust vectoring. right, let's get the gear down, flaps down. There's takeoff flaps. We'll turn on the final landing flaps, see how it acts. Just kind of floating a little bit on the elevator. No mix on the flaps. It definitely floats down in gently. No issues with full. Welcome back, everybody. We are down in the layer, and it's time to do the wrap-up of the MiG-29 from Freewing and Motion RC. So let me give you my opinion on this plane, and you know what they say about opinions, right? Flew 2 packs. You got to see the first and the second flight ever on this plane. And let's talk about batteries first. Running the Z5200 packs in this. First flight, set the timer for 310. Didn't think I was all that hard on the plane. Throttle management, flew maybe half, 3/4 throttle most of the flights, nothing aggressive. Maybe 1 or 2 higher speed passes, very limited. Landed the plane at roughly 310, 320, and I only had like 22% of the batteries left. So cells were down about 3/7 flat. Second flight, I think I flew the plane harder, same battery packs, different set, but same batteries. And flew the plane harder. I noticed that this plane flies really, really well, really right at half throttle. It'll do about anything you want it to do at half throttle. And I landed those right at 310, 315, and they had 48%. So I'm going to chalk that first pack run up to maybe some break into the motors and things like that, and just kind of toss that one out. So didn't really have any cut throttle situations in there. Most of it was half throttle, did some climbing, some loops, some rolls where I had some short bursts, but I think you could easily stretch this plane to 4 minutes plus. Taking off on the grass, we'll start there. The takeoffs were relatively easy. The big gear handled very well. I think this gear is more than ample for this plane. More than ample, especially on grass. Had no problem rolling, gaining speed, taking off at half flaps. And the elevator position, I set this on there, and I think I said back in my other video when I was doing the elevator setup that in the book it was like plus or minus 1 millimeter in there, and really it's 1 millimeter. They want it below the deck as a correction, if you will, but mine right where they were even were perfect. This plane needed no elevator trim. It needed 2 clicks of aileron, and it was pretty much well flying nice and level, and probably because I had the run cam is probably why I needed the elevator or the aileron trim. But the plane hops off the ground and climbs very quickly with half flaps. So maybe the half flaps on takeoff can either be taken out or they can be lowered in rate a little bit. I don't think it's super necessary to get this thing off the ground. It, like I said, when you take off, it climbs pretty steeply. I think this thing flies in flight a lot like a 3D plane. Again, my opinion, I'm going to give you this plane. The MiG-29 is fairly aerobatic, can turn a lot quicker than a lot of planes, and maybe that's what Motion Freewing was trying to transfer into the model, and if that was the case, they did a very good job of that. The plane flies light. It doesn't fly like the F-14. The F-14 flies heavy. It feels heavy in the sticks, if you know what I'm saying. This thing flies very light. The elevator throws on this, in my opinion, are aggressive. I went with the recommended CG, and I think it was perfect there, maybe even a hair behind it, aft, so a hair tail heavy. But on high rates where I typically fly a lot of planes, this thing will turn, and I made the comment in the video, in the Maiden, this thing you could fly it in a shoebox. This thing will turn on a dime with the elevator. And I compared a lot to E-Flight's, is it their F-16, if you will. that thing can pull a lot of Cubans and stuff and really change directions in a hurry. This is a very big plane that literally can turn in a hurry, and it can turn on a dime to the point where it almost feels like this plane would stall. You can almost completely stop your airspeed turning if you wanted to be very heavy in the elevator. I think you have to be disciplined in this thing on how much elevator throw you really need to get it to fly. For me, and this is where it's going to take several flights to really feel this out. I didn't really push anything inverted. I didn't really push any big Cubans or inverted loops or things like that that I do with a lot of my other jets, simply because I'm trying to feel out the situation with the elevator and find the truth. The plane flies light. The plane turns very quickly. The plane on aileron rolls has a little lump to it. It's not perfectly spiral as a drill bit. And if you want to try and do some big barrel rolls, if you combine some of that rudder with that aileron, it's definitely too much. So here's my opinion on rates. This plane I flew and liked better on low rates all the way around. So I almost think this is a lot like the Corsair for me personally. I'm going to dial my high rates is the low rate recommendation. And then I think what's going to happen is I'm going to make my low rates just a tad bit lower, and I'm going to keep tuning down until I find what I like. And I think the CG, I'm going to continue to try and shift a little bit more forward. I want the plane a little dartier rather than a little loftier. I want to make my turns and stuff a little bigger than the flat pan and turn and come back the other way. When you come into a Cuban, if you really pull on the elevator, you can drop it completely flat on its nose. If you want to pull an upline, you can almost L-shape this thing going up. It changes direction very, very, very quickly and very well. That's where I'm saying you get that 3D feel out of this. This doesn't fly like the F-14, the A-10. It doesn't fly like the Futura, the Viper, the Avanti. I've gotten my hands on all of those, and they are all very locked in speed. This plane flies lofty. It flies much different. I'm not going to say I dislike it, and I'm not going to say I really, really like it. I'm going to say that this thing's going to take some tuning to get it where I want. But I think this thing in design, if I had to guess, is going to be set up to respond very well to thrust vectoring, change direction, Cobra, things like that, flat spin in a hurry, and be able to pull out. Because I noticed if you turned hard, you got it to change direction hard to the point where it almost felt like it was going to stall. It didn't stall because of the weight. And I think that's where the motors are powerful enough that you would be able to do a lot of cool maneuvers with it, incorporating the thrust vectoring. So that's kind of my opinion on the flight. Again, half throttle, more than ample for about anything you want to do. Hops off the ground quick, fly it around. It felt stable. This is probably one of the quickest trimming planes I've ever flown as far as an EDF jet. And on landings, my landing approaches were much shorter. They were much lower. The plane is lofty. The glide rate is great. There's no mix on the elevator. And as far as touchdown, it was solid. The gear in the front, the bracing for the nose gear strut, all of that stuff was perfect and fantastic. No issues there at all. And I think as far as the quality of the build and the way it looks like this thing's going to hold up, again, I mentioned before in my video, I'm not a huge fan of the elevator linkage. I think I might look to change that down the road, maybe fill the tubes with epoxy once I'm satisfied with them. But I think a little tuning of the rates of this and maybe some linkage changes, which is apt for, you know, anybody to do if that's what they really want to do to their model and change things up. I definitely don't think you need to worry about more throw. And when it comes down to the crashes and the other things that had occurred and that we've seen on YouTube on this, with the amount of throw that this thing has, I almost wonder if the elevator's high speed stalled to the point where, you know, you get so much airflow over these things that they're almost ineffective in movement. Who knows? Otherwise, you know, you've seen Motion fly these things a lot. I've gotten 2 flights on mine. It's going to take me a little bit more with this plane to gain confidence with it and trust it, but I feel confident in it. It's just feel. We're going to have to dial this one in a little bit more than the others, but I think it's a fantastic plane. It looks really good. I did the Minwax over mine to help preserve and protect the decaling on it, the water slide transfers, but I think it's a good plane. Pick yourself one up. I hope you guys enjoyed the Maiden video. I hope you enjoyed my wrap up and my opinion of this plane. Again, It's Brennan from Just Plain Crazy. If you liked it, like it. If you don't like it, hit the unlike button twice for me. All right. Share the stuff, comment down below. I wish you guys happy flights with your Maidens. Good luck in doing your elevator servo replacement, and get out there to field happy flying. Peace out.